Increase your earning power with CNBC's Make It Your Money, bringing you expert advice from those who've made it, from starting a side hustle to building a business, increasing your income, and achieving financial success. CNBC's Make It Your Money livestream is sponsored by Edward Jones and Robinhood. Now, here's Frank Holland.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CNBC Make It Your Money. I'm Frank Holland. I am so glad you could join us. It's not easy these days to make your money last with inflation at near record highs and the looming threat of recession. You're probably wondering how you can make more because it is certainly harder to save more. Get this, according to a CNBC Momentum survey out this week, which polled over 5,100 people, only 7% say they have enough money saved for their retirement. 42% of those surveyed do not believe that they'll ever be able to retire. Scary thought. And while retirement might be a ways off for you, you're probably interested in learning new ways to make more, save more, and increase your income. Well, you've certainly come to the right place. Today, we're going to talk with experts who will share actionable ideas on how to level up your earning power. We'll also speak to 3 people who followed their passions and achieved financial success. They're going to tell us just how they did it. And later, we're going to talk to Money Court co-host, Shark Tank star, and also known as Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, who's going to share some very valuable lessons and some questions you should ask when you're thinking about starting a new business, a new investment, or maybe even a side hustle. So where do you start? That's a great question. From negotiating a pay raise, figuring out a new business idea, or knowing what age-old advice to completely avoid. Ramit Sethi, he covers it all. He's an entrepreneur, podcaster, and the author of I Will Teach You How to Be Rich. He joins us now from Los Angeles. Ramit, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ramit, let's start off with this. Your book's about how to get rich. So my first question for you is, what does it really mean to be rich? Is it a certain number of assets over liabilities? Is it having X amount of cash? Or is there some other metric that makes you rich?
Your definition of rich is going to be very different than mine. For some people, rich means having $1 million in the bank. I personally don't think that's very descriptive because isn't it different if you're 65 or 25? For some people, rich means being able to go to yoga in the middle of a weekday. And for some people, rich means being able to spend time picking up their kids from school every day. So you define what rich means to you, and it's very different than what it means to me.
Right, so it's a very personal thing. So
Yes.
Another thing we've all heard of is an age-old adage, work smarter, not harder. It's not that easy, though. How does psychology come into play, whether it's a business, investing, or just your job?
Well, the way most of us feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much we've got in the bank. I've spoken to people who have $10 million in net worth, and they still worry if they're going to have enough. That tells you it's not simply about how much you've got in the bank. You've got to change the way and work on your money psychology. That means really thinking about what you feel about money, how you grew up around money, and most importantly, what you want to be when it comes to money. Do you want to be generous, charitable, adventurous? You can choose, and you can make that a reality.
So, Ramit, just give us a guideline. I mean, I read your story. You started your financial education journey in college when you actually first learned about money. How do you feel about money? What are your personal feelings about it?
How do I feel about money? I see money as a source of growth. I see it as a source of adventure and spontaneity for me. You know, there's this phrase that we use sometimes in America, which is money changes people. Look at my face. Money changes people, as if that's a negative thing. Money should change people. It has made me more adventurous, spontaneous, generous. And so when we have money, we can choose what type of characteristics we want to emphasize, and that money allows us to do that.
All right, so we are definitely looking at your face, Ramit. That was hilarious. So I want to talk to you about a situation that the majority of people watching this will probably be in, trying to negotiate a raise with their boss. You have to look in their boss's face. What are some simple ways to have that conversation in a positive and constructive way?
Great. First thing you want to do is avoid what most people do, which is walk in and say, do you think maybe I could get paid a little bit more? No, that's not confident, and that's just basically putting your hand out and saying, can you pay me more? Don't do that. Here's a much better approach. You set up a meeting with your boss. You walk into her office. You say, look, it's really important to me that I am extraordinary at this job. And I want to know what it's going to take for me to do an extraordinary job. Can we talk about that? You and your boss jointly come up with a list of 2 or 3 goals. you write it down. You send an email, you make sure it's in writing, and then every 2 weeks, you update your boss. When it comes time for your review, let's say 6 months down the line, you walk in, you say, 6 months ago, here's what we talked about. I achieved those things. I've been updating you. And now pull out your sheet of research. I've looked at what other people in my position are making, and I'd like to discuss a compensation adjustment.
So it sounds like you're actually addressing the psychology of asking for a raise. It's a process. It's building up a relationship over time. It's initially engaging with your boss and talking to them about your goals, both professionally and as far as compensation. So when we go back to psychology about this, as you're going week to week, should you be confrontational? I mean, I would guess not. Or should you be more collaborative?
You don't need to be confrontational. Negotiation is a dance, and you're doing business. If your boss decides that they simply cannot pay you more, it does not reflect on you personally. It just means they cannot do it. Maybe your boss doesn't have the budget or the power. That's okay, but what it means for you is that you need to make a decision on whether you want to stay in that job or not. Let's remember that there are lots of jobs available, and we see that with the unemployment numbers. That means you have opportunity. If you're not getting what you need in this current job, you can make a move.
All right, so again, we're focusing on how to get rich. One way to get rich is to reduce your debt and the money that you're paying out every month. Obviously, debt also generally accrues interest, which eats away at your general wealth. So when you're attacking your debt, where do you start? Do you start with student loans, credit cards, or some other area?
When it comes to paying off debt, there's two major areas, student loans and credit cards. First of all, if you've got credit card debt, you got to pay that off immediately. That's 14 to 25%. That's huge interest rate. I will tell you something really interesting that I've learned from talking to tens of thousands of people in debt. 90% of them do not know how much they owe. They simply do not know. And 95% of them have no idea what date their debt will be paid off. So the simplest tactical thing you can do today is, number one, figure out exactly how much you owe. And make the companies work for you. Call them up, say, hey, how much do I owe and what's the interest rate? Get that written down. And then number two, you can go online, plug into a debt payoff calculator your numbers, and you will know the exact month and year where your debt will be paid off. What a relief.
Yep. I know it was a big relief for me when I paid off my student loans. I'm hoping everybody watching this has that feeling in the very near future. So would you also advise people just basically pull up their credit report and just look and see what's on there and what they have to address?
Yeah, you should pull up your credit report and you should pull your credit score at least once a year. Check it out. Make sure that there's no aberrations on there. Absolutely. But the most important thing beyond those things is to make a plan with your debt and then to automate your money so it's getting paid off. I see a lot of people doing all kinds of gimmicks. Should I do this interest rate thing and credit card 0% transfer for 1 year? Gimmicks. Focus on creating a simple debt payoff plan and make sure that your money is automatically paying it off. That's what moves the needle.
All right, speaking of a simple plan, a lot of people are really focused on budgets nowadays, especially with inflation concerns, recession concerns. What's your thought about budgeting? Should I just get rid of that latte every day and then save that up for a couple years and buy a house? Or is there some smarter way to go about this?
Yeah, I'm not the guy who's going to come on here and go, hey, you got to cut back on lattes. And if you save for the next 360,000 years, you can afford a down payment on a house. It doesn't work. First off, why take away the single piece of joy that a lot of people have in the morning? Second of all, it doesn't actually add up to that much. If we focus on the big wins, that can change our life. I think most of us are obsessed with $3 questions when we really should be asking $30,000 questions. So let's talk about a couple of them. First of all, $30,000 questions would be, what's my savings rate? What's my asset allocation? Am I properly investing? And have I negotiated my salary, for example? But when it comes to budgeting, I'm not a fan of budgets because they look backwards, they make me feel bad, and they don't really tell me what to do. I would instead recommend a conscious spending plan. You track 4 numbers, that's it. Your fixed costs, savings, investments, and your guilt-free spending, and then you get on with your life.
All right, Ramit, we got to go rapid fire here. A lot of people dream of a side hustle. What's your thoughts about side hustles, and what area of a side hustle should you focus in? Is it Uber driving the easiest way in the gig economy, or is there something else, like maybe starting a business and working that business over a long period of time?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, a lot of people think about side hustles. What are your thoughts about side hustles, and what are the best side hustles?
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you in the control room over there. Maybe they can come out and assist.
Yeah, you know, technical difficulties, the magic of technology sometimes backfires. I'm asking you about side hustles. What are your thoughts about it?
Okay. Love side hustles. I think it's so frequent that we think about money as a fixed pie. And yet, we can increase the size of our pie, and one great way to do that is to start a side hustle. Now, I have thousands of people who I've helped start side hustles, and they can be as simple as dog walking, more complex like a personal organizer or personal stylist, Excel consultant, etc. There's so many ways to do it. Some typical things that I would suggest for people. First off, the biggest barrier for people is, what's my idea? And most people sit there and they go, oh, wow, what's my idea? They wait for 20 years like it's going to fall from the sky. That's not how it works. You got to find the idea. So here's a simple thing you could do today, right now, to find at least 3 ideas. Text your friends. Say, hey, I was watching this guy on CNBC, and he suggested I do this. So I have this weird question for you. What are 3 things you think I'm really good at? A lot of times your friends and family will tell you something you didn't even realize. Wow, you always keep your apartment organized. You're so stylish. You know how to train dogs. And that right there is the genesis for what can turn into a side hustle, which can generate substantial amounts of money for you.
All right, we're almost out of time. We want to address something. What are some commonly held myths about money, saving, investing, entrepreneurship that you want to dispel right now?
Can you say that again? Some common myths about entrepreneurs?
About entrepreneurship, investing, budgeting that you'd like to dispel?
I'm sorry, the audio's not picking up.
Are there any myths about money that you think aren't true and that you think people believe, but you want to straighten everybody out and just say they're not true, they don't really apply to today's world?
Oh, well, some myths about entrepreneurship and money I'll quickly tell you. First off, the idea that we need to wait for a gatekeeper to approve us, that we need somebody to bless us. No, you can do it right now. You can start a business on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Another myth would be that you need to be credentialed. Now, listen, if you're going to be a cardiologist, you need to be credentialed. But if you're going to teach people how to walk a dog, if you're going to teach people how some of your journey that you took to achieve something, you often can start right now. Remember, you don't need to be the world's best to teach other people. You just need to be a little bit more ahead of where they are.
Ramit, great stuff. Great to have you on. We appreciate the insight. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Money Court co-host Kevin O'Leary on how to level up your earnings. Mr. Wonderful with that in just a minute.
Dad, we got this.
We got this.
Let me check out the town, okay?
We got this.
We got this.
We got this. We got this.
We got this.
Life is for living.
We got this.
Let's partner for all of it. Edward Jones.
Hello, I'm Lena Haas. I lead wealth management advice and solutions at Edward Jones. On behalf of our nearly 19,000 financial advisors and 50,000 associates, what an honor it is for us to sponsor CNBC's Make It Your Money event. For 100 years, Edward Jones has been helping people achieve financially what is most important to them. It is how we advance our purpose, to partner for positive impact, to improve the lives of our clients and colleagues, and together better our communities and societies. That means creating greater financial well-being for our clients, creating a place of belonging for our colleagues, and ensuring our communities are better off because we are a part of them. At Edward Jones, we are looking forward to the next 100 years of partnering for positive impact.
All right, welcome back. If you're a fan of CNBC's Make It series, you're probably familiar with some of those Make It success stories. We all enjoy them. Those are people just starting out in the world who found success by thinking completely outside of the box. CNBC's Christina Partsinevelos joins us now to introduce us to 3 of these remarkable entrepreneurs.
10 years ago, Michelle Schroeder-Gardner was an MBA graduate with $38,000 in student debt. She started her blog, Making Sense of Sense, as a hobby while she worked as a financial analyst. Within 6 months, she sold her first sponsored post, and soon the blog grew into a profitable business and her full-time gig. Now she's leveraged the Making Sense brand into several revenue streams, including an online course in blogging. Today, she earns $100,000 a month and works only 10 hours a week. She spends the rest of her time traveling the world on her 42-foot sailboat. Todd Baldwin and his wife bought their first house at age 23. By renting out rooms and using the income to invest in more property, they built a real estate empire that now brings in $2 million a year. Now, at age 30, Todd has earned enough money to quit his day job and focus on real estate full-time. His secret to getting rich? Reinvesting in himself. Baldwin spends very little of his take-home pay and puts almost all of his money back into his business. Grace Torres turned her passion into her profession and now earns $235,000 a year as a wedding photographer. 10 years ago, at age 13, she bought her first camera with $500 in savings and started taking portraits of friends. Photography remained a side hustle during high school and college while she worked multiple other jobs and established her business. But 5 months after college graduation, Grace took the leap into full-time photography. It's a risk that paid off. Today, she's her own boss in a field she loves. We are joined by the stars of that video, Michelle, Todd, and Grace. And I have to say that a lot of our viewers, when we put out those Make It stories, they do phenomenally well. We get so many viewers reading these articles because people just want to learn how do they figure out what their side hustle is and how can they turn that side hustle into a full-time gig. And Michelle, I'm going to start with you because all three of you were able to do that. But Michelle, there was a little bit of a difference with yours because it's not only about quitting your day job and doing something passionate, but you took it one step further by choosing to uproot your life and live on a boat. So, and with a small baby, right? So how did you manage to make that decision?
Yeah, so I started making sense of sense around 10 years ago, and at that time I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I had a lot of student loans. I wasn't really sure how I was going to continue on with paying my bills, and I started making sense of sense, and I learned about the big world of side hustling. And with that, I started freelance writing, virtual assisting, starting a blog, renting out spare rooms in my home, and so much more. And with that, I was able to pay off $40,000 in student loans by side hustling like crazy. And that completely changed my life. I was able to pay off my student loans, move on to a boat. I first lived in an RV. I was able to reach financial independence, save for early retirement, and side hustling has completely changed my life, and that's why I love talking about it.
Okay, well, I'm actually going to stick with that side hustle theme right now. And Todd, I'm going to pivot to you. Can you discuss what your passive income is and just discuss the risks that have been associated with that choice?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I think passive income is so important because it doesn't require you to trade your time for money. So you can literally be spending time with your friends and family and making money. But my passive income journey has been all about real estate. I know that real estate is a really hot button right now, and I live in Seattle where the real estate is so crazy expensive. But the way I invest in real estate, it hasn't really been that risky for me. I am very specific with the criteria that I choose. I only buy properties that I know that will work, and I make sure that anything that I do buy can generate passive income.
Wait, so can you just be a little bit more specific on what are your factors for what you're buying?
Absolutely. So my wife and I started a real estate company where we basically do what's called house hacking, which for anyone who may not know, the way we do it is we buy single-family homes in an undervalued area that's going through a transition, but we actually rent out those homes by the bedroom. So instead of just getting one family in there where they pay, $2,500 a month, most of our tenants are young professionals who have a lot of student loan debt, who want to live cheaply so they can pay off that debt and eventually buy a home of their own. So we have houses with 6 bedrooms or 8 bedrooms where people are paying anywhere from $900 to $1,200 per month for a bedroom. And we have a maid come in and clean every house once a week. We cover all the utilities. We stock the houses with toilet paper, paper towels, hand soap, and pretty much make it full service. But for us, we're able to generate, 3 to 4 times market rent on average. But for our tenants, they're paying significantly less than they would pay for a studio here in Seattle.
Oh, so you just brought up costs, and this is going to pivot to Grace. In the photography world, there must be some element of seasonality and lull. So what are you doing during that period? Do you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank account to survive those quiet times, or maybe you don't have any quiet times?
Yeah, so typically you would have an off season, especially our 2 markets are Florida, New Jersey, New York City. So Florida's off season, of course, is the summer because it's so warm here. It rains every day. Not ideal for weddings. And New Jersey's off season is the winter because it is freezing cold. But because I've split my market into 2 different markets, I don't really have much of an off season. I'm busy throughout the fall and the winter here in Florida. And then in the summer, I'm typically shooting out of state.
So you're traveling quite a bit then? And
yes.
Are you paying those upfront costs then for all the flights and everything?
No. So travel is always covered by our clients. We give them a quote when they book us so that they can know how much they're going to expect to pay. But all of our travel is covered by our clients unless we decide to stay a little bit longer, if it's like a dream destination, and stay a couple of days for a vacation.
Okay. Michelle, I want to go back to you just to talk about time management, because often when we do these CNBC Make It articles, there's a line in that, made $30,000 only 5 hours a week, or $200,000 or $2 million only 10 hours a week. And with your headline, it read that you managed to only do 10 hours. Is it 10 hours a week or a day?
Yes, 10 hours a week.
Okay, so is that real? Is that true?
Yeah, so it hasn't always been this way. I definitely started out 10 years ago, working a full-time job, side hustling. I was going to school for my MBA all full-time. So back then I was working anywhere from 70 to 100 hours a week. But I realized that that was not sustainable in the long term, of course, working 10, 12 hours a day. And a big goal of mine was to find ways to lessen the amount of hours that I was working. So that included finding passive income, putting my business on autopilot, outsourcing tasks such as hiring a virtual assistant, and just doing things so that I could work less over time. And that has been a huge goal of mine over the past couple of years.
But is that at the sacrifice of growing your company because you want to choose to work a certain amount of time, therefore you're maybe not growing it to its full potential?
There is a little bit of sacrifice. I have saved enough for financial independence and early retirement, so I don't feel like I have to say yes to every project these days. So that is something that you have to think about if you're working less. But there are ways to offset that. If you find more ways to diversify your income through passive income methods, that is a great way to increase your income and still find ways to work less.
Oh, Grace, I actually want to go back to you because I just want to talk about paying yourself and what it takes or what it means to you to reinvest in the business. And maybe I'll ask this to all 3 of you because I think it's a really important one that often as entrepreneurs, they seem to forget and they're just so focused on the business. So can you just talk about paying yourself?
Yeah, in the beginning, it's really common, especially for solopreneurs. You're investing so much money back into the business that you really might not be paying yourself very much in the first year. And that's why I feel lucky that I was able to side hustle into full-time with very little pressure to make a lot of money in order to survive or to support a family. But now that the business is a bit more established, I still do quite a bit of reinvesting. I'm still in under 5 years into my business. So I'm definitely still a young business. We do reinvest a lot, but we've been able to add an additional full-time employee. So now there's 2 of us and I'm able to support our family that way. And I feel really lucky for that.
Congrats. I'm just curious, how did you find your employee?
It's my husband, so.
Okay. Keeping it within the business. Todd, in the video that we played right before we came to this live panel, we talked about you and the fact that you invest almost all your money back into the business. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. So when I first started, I was also working about 17 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and also on the weekends. And every penny that I made, we were just putting it back into more real estate. And that's how we were able to scale so quickly and buy so many properties in such a short time. So we just started actually enjoying our money, gosh, maybe about 2 years ago now. But to this day, I still drive a 2009 Ford Focus with 180,000 miles on it, even though I do have a 7-figure income at this point.
Whoa. Okay, wait. Are you making any other sacrifices then, or sticking to the habits that you had previously?
I do have habits that save a lot of money. For example, right now, my wife and I live in a duplex that we own, but, we rent out the other half of it, and so we pretty much live for free. I will say we did just buy a piece of land, and we're building our dream mansion, so the living for free is about to go away. But, things here and there, like I still clip coupons if I'm going to go get pizza, and I still am a secret shopper, which is basically just a way to get paid to go to restaurants and movie theaters. So I'm a frugal guy, and I don't need a whole lot to make me happy, and it just makes it so much easier when you're able to design your life and live for free or live cheaply and also increase your income at the same time.
Michelle, I just want to go back to you now and talk about, discovering that passion. The guest that we had on before our panel said that you need to contact your friends and ask, what are 3 things you're good about, or you're known to be good for, and then maybe that could be how you pursue your next endeavor. Do you have any advice on how people could figure out what they're good at or how they could get a side hustle? Because I think that's the biggest hurdle, is just figuring out, what am I good at?
Yeah, so there are different ways to figure out what side hustle would be best for you. The first thing I would start with is, how much free time do you have? Clearly, some side hustles take a lot less time than others, and some will take a lot more. Some side hustles might be a near full-time job, whereas some side hustles, such as dog walking, you can make it as many little hours as you'd like it to be. So it really depends on how much time you have. And then the next thing I would think about is what skills you have, what passions you have, and what your goals are with your side hustle. For example, do you want it to just be a part-time income? Are you just looking to make some extra cash? Or are you wanting to turn your side hustle into your full-time day job business? So there are many different things to think about. Starting with your skills, your time, and your goals are very important when it comes to that.
This is a complete pivot, but Michelle, are you working with your husband on the company as well? Or your partner? I shouldn't assume.
Yeah, It is mainly me. I do outsource different tasks. My sister-in-law and my sister are both my editor and my virtual assistant as well. So it is still in the family, just like Grace is as well.
Yeah, well, Grace, and then Todd, your wife as well, right? So it seems like that's a commonality, too. All of you are keeping it in the family.
Absolutely, and I am the luckiest person ever because my wife is also a CPA, so I have in-house tax advice, and so, yeah, it works out beautifully.
Grace, have you encountered any hurdles then for our viewers that are watching right now? Maybe we can join forces with our significant other, but I would assume that there might be some hurdles. Are you facing any?
Yeah, especially in the beginning. We got married in 2021, so we were still kind of in the newlywed phase. It gave us a year to get used to being married and to build the business. And I was training Christian as my second photographer, and he was learning videography the year prior. And then we brought him in August of this year full time. And as I brought him on, I really wanted to see him as like an equal partner to the business when he had no prior experience as a business owner or as a creative. So really, I had to shift my mindset and treat him more like an employee, train him, give him tasks and like really guided direction and resources to help him learn. And that has helped our relationship immensely. And we also really just try to separate our marriage from our work, and that helps as well.
Yeah, that must be really tough for all 3 of you. But I want to just move on to talk about social media. So Todd, I'll go back to you, and I want to talk about or tell me how important social media is when it comes to building your business, and maybe which channel is the best one for you.
That's a great question. So, admittedly, I don't have a ton of social media followers, but what I do have is social proof. So I think social proof is really important. If somebody Googles my name, they can see a dozen or so articles about me and real estate, and they know that I'm legitimate and I can help them out with their business and make sure that I'm doing my role and actually have that proof that I've done it before. On Instagram, I have, like 7,000 followers, so not a ton. I'm active on social media, but I wouldn't say I certainly wouldn't call myself a social media influencer. You'll probably never catch me doing TikTok dances, pointing to disappearing text bubbles, because that's just not me. But I do think building a brand online and having a strong online social profile is very important. And for me, that just comes in the form of social proof with different articles and, frankly, segments like this, where I get to talk about my business and people can see it and, determine for themselves if I'm the type of guy they want to work with.
Yeah, doing things like this adds street cred, right? I would hope so. But Michelle, do you have you see me promoting CNBC, but Michelle, can you just talk to me just about your social media experience? Because I think on a boat, right, maybe you rely on it a little bit more, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, social media is definitely important when it comes to building a side hustle. And for me, it's a great way for me to connect with my readers, answer any questions that they have, and just show them life behind the scenes. I think that's great for many businesses. That's what customers want to see. I know that when I'm about to use a new company, I might head to their social media page and just see like what they're sharing, what they're doing, if they answered any questions and stuff like that. I definitely think a social media page such as TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter is super helpful when it comes to a side hustle and for any business.
And Grace, is there one channel in particular that you love and you think is the best for promoting your business?
Yeah, I started out on Instagram. That's where I got pretty much all of my clients in the beginning before I started getting referrals. But I actually direct a lot of people, especially in the wedding industry, to TikTok right now. There are so many people who are planning their wedding on TikTok, and you get so much more organic reach. A lot of my dream wedding inquiries that never would have honestly come from Instagram have come from TikTok to go to Hawaii or to Tuscany or to Greece. So TikTok is kind of my place right now.
Okay, thanks guys for that. It's funny because you all have different perspectives on the social media aspect, but I want to talk about our 2023, entering 2023. It's a topic we often talk about on CNBC, and just the economy and you know, recession and how bad it's going to be. And Todd, I'm going to start with you, just given your exposure to the real estate market. How concerned are you, especially because it is your entire business? Are you worried with the rate of interest rates and how quickly they've climbed, and you know, the slowdown in the housing market? How is this affecting your business?
Great question. So I'm very aware of interest rates and what the housing market is doing. I wouldn't say that I'm worried, though. You know, yes, I own this real estate company, but I have many other income streams, too. And this year and last year, I started wholesaling real estate, and that has been an absolute game changer. I think previously they talked about some numbers, but I was able to make $100,000 in literally 47 hours of work. So 6 figures in 1 week, and that was just this year when interest rates were really high. I think at the time interest rates were 7% when I had that deal go through. So I know that I have a strategy that I'm going to be using moving forward, you know, to sort of help me in the recession. I wouldn't say I'm concerned, though. You know, I'm very well diversified. I also own a lot of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate. Sure, it's my bread and butter, but it's not the only thing that I have. And I'm just of the opinion that anyone can succeed in a recession. And frankly, a lot of people actually make tons of money in a recession because it might allow you to buy things on sale.
Yeah, and Michelle, what about for you, given that you talk about the economy, you talk about helping people with their finances? Have you noticed a change, and are you concerned going into 2023?
So as a personal finance expert, the recession is something, a possible recession is something that does come up a lot on Making Sense of Sense with my readers. I am looking forward to being able to help readers on Making Sense of Sense. It's not something I am super worried about when it comes to blogging in general, just because I am so diversified and there are so many different ways to make money online. But I am here to help my readers when it comes to recession tips, and hopefully things in 2023 are much better than we anticipate they will be.
I hope so, for the sake of everyone here. But Grace, I just want to end with you with a final question. Since we're talking more about, you know, the what ifs and contingency plans, do you have a contingency plan set up? Is it maybe more money in your bank account, or a certain amount, like a threshold, a percentage of your income? What is your contingency plan?
Yeah, we do have a large amount in savings right now, especially because our full, family's income relies on the photography business, both in the business account and in our personal accounts. We have quite a bit saved for that. But another pro, I think, to being a service provider in the wedding industry is that your income is pretty much set for you a whole entire year before it happens. So we've had 2023 fully booked. We know exactly how much we're going to make next year, relatively at least. So I'm not super worried about it.
Yeah. Grace, Todd, and Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Frank, back over to you.
All right, Christina, thank you very much. Great panel, Christina. Thank you very much. All right, well, for every success story, like the ones that we just saw, there are plenty of stories filled with challenges, pitfalls, and lessons that just have to be learned. Take cryptocurrency, for example. A short time ago, it was the hottest investment out there. But thanks to the so-called crypto winter, things have changed. It's been magnified by the collapse of FTX as well. Many people are out of a whole lot of money And they're really just wondering were there some warning signs that they may have missed. Kevin O'Leary, star of Shark Tank and co-host of CNBC's Money Court, he was also a paid spokesperson and investor in FTX. He lost nearly $15 million on it, and he joins us now with the lessons learned from this story and what people should really watch for and ask about when getting into any new investment. Kevin, great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, Kevin, I think we just have to start off with the news here. Sam Bankman-Fried, he was arrested last night in the Bahamas. Among the charges that were unsealed this morning alleged that Bankman-Fried, that he, quote, I want to read this exactly, deliberately and knowingly agreed with others to defraud customers of FTX.com by misappropriating those customers' deposits and using those deposits to pay expenses and debts of Alameda Research, end quote. That's from the unsealed documents. What's your reaction to this news?
Well, I think it's where the chips are going to fall. There's no question about it. Obviously, there's been a horrific herd mentality on this case now for weeks, ever since the bankruptcy, and I can understand the anger. But what matters in America and what makes its judicial system work so well is that everybody gets their day in court. And so this is what's going to happen to Sam Bankman-Fried. Hopefully, he's going to be given a fair trial. He will plead his case. The outcome is unknown. And if he's not successful, I think we all know the outcome. But the point is, it will have the light of transparency shone on it between now and then. And this is the beginning of a process. Right. And so recovery is on the minds of many shareholders and account holders now.
Right. So speaking of transparency, Kevin, thank you for coming on. Obviously, you were involved in this very controversial story, and you've been very upfront. You lost nearly $15 million when you put your faith in Sam Bankman-Fried. What are the lessons that you learned from this situation? I know this involved millions and millions of dollars, but lessons that you learned that could apply to regular investors.
You know, I could have taken a different approach to this whole situation and just written it off like the other 90 investors in this deal from the equity point of view have. And that includes some of the biggest names in finance around the world. We all feel like idiots today, obviously, but not this one. I feel compelled and obligated to see it through, to find out what happened, not only to the company itself, but the cash that was swept out of the accounts, including mine, 2 weeks ago. One moment I had money there and the next I didn't. And I want to know where that is. And so I'm going to use, obviously, my ability to pursue it. I'm fortunate I have the resources to do that. But I also have millions of people following me on social media that want answers too. And we're going to go on this journey together. I'm going to find out where the money is, and then I'm going to go get it. That's sort of my plan. I have no other path to take on this one. And at the end of the day, I think it's a good lesson learned for everybody. But it doesn't change anything for me in terms of what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. I'm going to continue to invest in crypto. I'm a big believer in the platforms and the technology and the promise of this, what's going to come in the years ahead. This is a classic situation of a company that failed because of really bad compliance.
Right. So I think the lesson may be just don't walk away. Try to find some way to salvage your investment. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not just salvaging my investment, but to find out what happened. You can't learn a lesson. The whole idea of experience in life is learning a lesson from your mistakes. That's the whole point. That's what makes great entrepreneurs. That's why I've said in the past, and although it was misread in the case of Sam Bankman-Fried, I have invested in entrepreneurs that have gone through catastrophic failures, picked themselves up, and started again. And I do that because that's experience. That's what happens. You learn something, you don't do that again, you become a better manager, better at executing your skill sets, better at managing other people's money, all of that and above. And so at the end of the day, this is a horrific situation, but everybody's going to learn something from it. And I think, and this is if there is a silver lining to this situation, the crypto industry is going to come out better because it's getting rid, it's hurting, it's culling its own herd. Okay. It's getting rid of the bad actors, the weak actors, the incompetent managers, all of that. There's going to be many more bankruptcies before this is over. The follow-on effect is going to be brutal, but that's a good thing. It's going to clean this whole mess up.
All right, Kevin, I want to refer to what you mentioned, your social media followers, of course, the people who are a big fan of yours from your work on Shark Tank. A lot of them are going to watch what you do. And, of course, hindsight is 20/20. So not to belabor this point, but were there any red flags that in hindsight you see now when it comes to Sam Bankman-Fried or investing in FTX, which, in all fairness, is a high-risk asset?
You know, people are asking that question, and so they should. It goes down to the idea of why didn't all of you do more due diligence? Let me give you something to consider. I've been a venture investor for decades, and many of the companies that invested in this nascent business and this entrepreneur at the time, Sam Bankman-Fried, we make investments all the time. And out of 10 investments we make, generally speaking, 7 to 8 of them fail. They fail for various reasons. That's the nature of venture investing. And so, yes, it's always great to do due diligence, and more of it's always better. But it doesn't change the stats. Since the 50s, since the 1950s, you can't do much better than 70 to 80% failure. And that's the end of the game. I mean, that's sort of what you have to understand. And so, you know, this one is a loser. It's a 0. And it's like the other 8 of the 10 of its ilk. And so, you know, it's unfortunate, but we'll learn our lesson. We've lost our money, lots of it. But it doesn't stop what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you know, Kevin, I wouldn't imagine it would stop you. You're certainly one of the most sophisticated investors on Wall Street. But for the general investor, the retail investor, the average person out there, do you believe that there's a lesson to be learned about investing in high-risk assets? For you, investing in FTX was a high-risk asset. But in general, for the average investor, just cryptocurrency. Is there some lesson about cryptocurrency, other future high-risk assets that may emerge in the future?
Yes, there are. It's a great question. Number one, let's just stay in crypto. If you're going to be an investor in crypto, do not have all your assets in one institution. Do not allow more than 20% to be in one institution. Voyager happens, FTX happens, Bear Stearns happens, Lehman Brothers happens. These institutions fail sometimes for various reasons, and so you don't want to have everything in one institution. That's lesson number one, and clearly everybody's learned that with FTX. Lesson number two, in terms of what you own in crypto, get some diversification across the different tokens and assets. I have a simple portfolio strategy. I don't put any more than 5% into any one. And, you know, you may be a big believer in Bitcoin. You may be a big believer in Polygon or Ethereum, whatever it is. Get some diversification in your portfolio. So own diversified assets within crypto. They all do different things and they have different values. Also, hold them in different institutions or wallets, just in case your institution fails. And they're going to continue to fail. These unregulated exchanges are going to continue to go to zero until we get regulation, transparency, auditability, proof of reserves, and all of the things we have in traditional exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. It's time to regulate now.
Okay, Kevin, certainly something to watch, and we'll see how that plays out as the Sam Bankman-Fried drama and criminal case unfolds. I want to focus on maybe some more positive things. Let's look on the bright side. Let's say you have an investment, a business, or something that's going really well. What would you suggest people do if they're having success to protect themselves from downside risk?
Reduce debt immediately, particularly in small businesses. I've done this so much with my CEOs. The minute you start cash flowing positive, start to pay down every debt you have. The only thing that can take you down in times of stress is leverage. That's what kills you. And I think we're going to find that out if this economy goes soft next year. You want to reduce your debt load because particularly for small businesses, very often they're funding their businesses on credit card debt at 18 to 21% interest rates. That is not sustainable. You must pay that off. If you're doing factoring, that right now is 11 to 15%. In other words, factoring your receivables to get cash before the store pays you that bought the inventory from you. All of these tricks are about reducing leverage. And then the other rule I keep telling all my CEOs, and this has proven to be the best advice over the decades. There are 3 rules you must focus on. Number 1, customer. Number 2, customer. Number 3, customer. If you take care of your customer... I
had a feeling number 3 was going to be customer.
Yes, if you take care of your customer, they will take care of you. Customers that feel they're being well served are even willing to pay higher prices and are very sticky. Focusing on the customer has taken many companies through the downturns. Customer service is everything.
So one last word, Kevin, before we let you go. Timing. We're in a post-pandemic world right now. How do you view the horizon of an investment, a business, or whatever else you're doing with your money? Have the sense of time that you put into a business and believe that it's succeeded or failed, has that changed at all in today's world?
No. The rule I've said for decades now also is, look, if you have a business and you're not profitable, cash flowing profitably after 3 years, take it behind the barn and you know what you have to do with it. Try something else. Your most valuable asset is your time. You don't want to waste it on something that's never going to be profitable. And entrepreneurs that have failed, as I said earlier, are very good investments for investors. But just because we're going into a recession, if we are, we don't know that yet because we're still at full employment, recessions are sometimes the best time to start new businesses, the best time. The opportunities are immense, and it makes you and forces you to be frugal because it's very hard to finance. These are immense opportunities these times. Do not be dissuaded or put off by the fact that we're in a recession. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, go for it. Do it now, regardless of what the economy is doing. Does not matter. Time has proven that. Great ideas come from basements in all economic times.
So, Kevin, it sounds like you have a lot of thoughts about 2023 with the potential of a recession. Obviously, inflation's still pretty high. If you had to give people a phrase, a word, just a thought about 2023, whether it's investing, entrepreneurship, or some other financial move, what would you say?
Cautious optimism. I'm always that way. I think next year is going to be challenging from a few points of view because the cost of capital has gone up and the Fed will continue to raise rates. But that doesn't mean there isn't opportunity. The thing I always tell entrepreneurs when they bring their spreadsheet, I've never seen a spreadsheet that didn't go up to the right. In other words, everybody's so optimistic about their forecasts. You should always be thinking about where am I going to get my next incremental dollar, my next sale? How am I going to grow my business? How do I acquire my customers? That skill set really requires understanding of social media, no question about it, understanding of good accounting principles and reporting so that you have a dashboard that you can monitor your business right down to daily activity, and understanding what drives your customer to make purchase decisions. These things are basics. They're not going to change anytime soon, but keeping your eye on the cash flow really matters. Don't waste money. It's very, very hard to raise now. So don't make over-optimistic assumptions. Don't hire somebody just because you think you're going to make more money with them. Prove it first. I've done a lot of work in contract labor. In other words, pay somebody more for the first 6 months to prove them out, see if they can work with the team, and then make them an employee after they've had that test. That way you don't make the mistake of hiring the wrong person and go through the pain and misery of having to let them go.
Well, Kevin, I'm very excited to watch a little bit of Money Court. Here's my 3 takeaways. Don't waste your time. Certainly don't waste your money. And it's all about showing and proving, not just forecasting. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, you're wonderful as always. We appreciate the insight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Take care.
And as I mentioned, make sure to catch Kevin on CNBC's Money Court, where he and co-host Bethany Frankel, they preside over a wide range of financial disputes commonly faced by small businesses and deliver financial justice. Money Court airs Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on CNBC, and his 3 tips there: the customer, the customer, the customer. All right, that brings us to the end of our program. Thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you learned a lot and you got some good ideas on how to make more money, and once you make it, more importantly, how to keep it. For those of you entrepreneurs and small business owners out there, we support you as always. We'd like to invite you to join us at our Small Business Playbook virtual event. That's tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. You're going to hear from business owners and experts with tips on growing your business, navigating economic uncertainty, strategic planning, marketing, and much, much more. To register, scan the QR code on your screen, or you can visit cnbcevents.com/smallbusiness, and we really hope to see you there tomorrow. Until next time, everyone, I'm Frank Holland. Take care, and thank you for watching.